if there's a designer out there, if there's a company out there that really somewhere thinks that kids are not lying about their age and clicking that box, say, yep, I'm over 13. I got a bridge to sell them in the middle of the Pacific. It's gorgeous. There's water on both sides. I promise you, it's ridiculous.
Hey, what's up? This is Jamal Abbott. Thanks for tuning in. Here to talk to you today about online privacy and protection for children. I have Lisa Mans on the show, and this was a super interesting episode. If you've listened before, Lisa is a repeat guest and actually on for the second time, and she dropped several gems and nuggets that I know that you'll appreciate, especially when it comes to being more aware about the privacy and the protection of your children online. We'll go into the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act. That's the first part of this conversation. And that leads to other topics, including how to keep kids safe on social media, as well as some other things to consider when it comes to children on the internet and protecting their privacy. Lisa also has a Facebook group called LEAP with Tech Savvy Kids, with LEAP standing for Leading, Empowering, and Protecting. Check the show notes for a link to the Facebook group. Let me know what you think about this episode. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Lisa Mans. So Lisa, go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. And my thing is too, Jamal, that a lot of people came out saying, oh, it's another law. Oh, this is going to be horrible. It doesn't have to be. It's all about perception, right? Your perception is your reality. So if you tell yourself, then you're going to look at it like it's an obstacle. We choose absolutely every single day, whether it's the obstacles or opportunities. I see nothing but opportunities when it comes to the AADCA. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
What exactly makes this an opportunity to consider? Because I know that we were talking about just with kids in general, how their information can be used to be sold to other individuals. What makes this better than the current system right now?
Well, it takes a lot more into consideration, right? It isn't just talking about privacy and data. It's talking about the actual design of sites and the design of content. Let's say autoplay on a streaming site. All of the privacy settings are defaulted to the most private level, number one, which makes sense, right? We don't want kids PII being out there. Nobody
Right.
does. They're also asking, like I said, that they keep the age in mind of the content consumer. So if you're keeping PII to a minimum, and it's funny, people define PII in different ways. There are some schools, for example, that utilize a child's student ID number for their email address. That is
Interesting.
PII. That is PII because that student ID number doesn't just identify who they are and what their address is, but it identifies who they are inside their HIPAA protected medical files at the school. It identifies what their interests are at the library. It talks about what they ate at lunch.
Mm.
A lot of people don't consider that. And there are a lot of different laws out there. There's COPA, there's FERPA, and under the Family Educational Rights protect. FERPA is Family Educational Rights and Protection Act. Okay, it started in the 70s. When you go sign your kids up for school, you sign all of those data rights over to the school, and they can do with it what they want.
Yeah. Yep.
And it can be in conflict sometimes with COPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act. But I went out to the side there. When you talk about privacy and protection, it's easy to do because there's so much involved and there's so many moving parts. That's why Authentikid is important, because we maintain and follow all those moving parts. for people. And the number one thing that is going to make a difference is the age verification software that we're doing. The key to the age appropriate design code is right in the name. It's being age appropriate, and determining the age or close to it is important. But then you got to try to do it without PII. And that's, as I discussed with you before, biometrics isn't going to cut it, at least for me as a parent. There's no way, because once your biometrics are compromised, there's no turning back on that. Zero.
Absolutely agree with that.
But the opportunities within the age appropriate design code, so again, you've got to set all the default settings to the most private, but you have to design experiences, right? Because every engagement on a site, an app, a game is an experience. You have to design it in an age appropriate manner. So this, in my opinion, opens up so much opportunity. For example, let's say your kid lands in a world on Fortnite or on, let's go with Fortnite, because Fortnite is wild, right? There's all kinds of things that go on Fortnite. There's the adult version, and then there's the kid version. The great thing about it is that because we all know, going back to our last conversation, the trust system is broken. If there's a designer out there, if there's a company out there that really somewhere thinks that kids are not lying about their age and clicking that box, say, yep, I'm over 13. I got a bridge to sell them in the middle of the Pacific. It's gorgeous. There's water on both sides. I promise you. It's ridiculous. I mean, lying about your age is something that adults and kids do. Kids do it to appear older. Adults do it no time to appear younger. So it's part of being human. You can't go by the trust factor anymore. So the key is finding out the age group. And then let's say your kid lands, like I said, on Fortnite. If you know that's a 9-year-old kid playing, you're not going to have them walk into a whiskey bar, whiskey a go-go.
Right.
You're going to have them walk into, maybe it's a pastry place, and they're going to order, on the menu is milk and it's not Jello shots.
Right.
It's augmented reality, in the sense, in-game augmented reality. So it's going to take some design changes, but there are some really cool things you could do, and you've got that opportunity for marketing without target marketing, right? Because you can't target market to kids, but you can say, this, according to the age appropriate design code, the age groups are 0 to 5, 6 to 9, right? Yeah, 6 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15 as young teens, so non-driving, non-employable, typically, depending on what state you're in, and then 16 to 17 years, 11 months. This is the other part that makes the age appropriate design code so much more responsible. Kudos to the people who originally wrote COPA, but again, we cannot hold kids legally responsible and engage them in a legally binding contract, which is exactly what checking the 13 and over box is.
Right. Especially with that long user agreement.
Because let's be honest, as adults, do we read that? No.
No.
I'm just giving my Facebook, my Google email, my Twitter account, and how many people have multiple accounts? Either they forget the password, right? Let's just go with that innocent one. But there are predatory reasons why people have multiple accounts as well. And when I say predatory, I don't mean it in the scariest sense, but it could be someone who's just being nosy and, wants to see who blocked who, or, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting too that you broke down the different ages, so I can see how, if you're a content creator, how you could design the game or
Yes,
design the experience based
different.
upon the age level, instead of saying, you know, 13 and up, or, you know, 7 and
Exactly.
up. And yeah, there's a better way doing this. And you know, going back to the example of like the movies, you know, they
Hmm.
have the PG-13, the PG, the G, and so on
Right.
and so forth. But yeah, there's a way to rate this. And if you have that rating system ahead of time, then you're making different decisions about the content that your child is being exposed to. So my
Absolutely.
youngest child, who's elementary kid, we always have
Hmm.
this conversation, because anytime that he wants to download a game on the iPad, I look at this and I'm like, all right, hey, this isn't for you because it says 9 and up or 13 and up. And then I'll even look at the little either screenshots or the little videos, just to kind of get a sense of what type of content he's going to be exposed
Right.
to. So even though it says, we'll say maybe 7 and up, but if they're going in there and doing things that I don't necessarily agree with that he should be exposed to at that age, then I know that, you know, you shouldn't be playing that. But that's a lot harder if he were to be in a different type of game, like a Fortnite, like a Roblox, you know, something else like that, where there's
Right.
content
Multiplayer
creators within the
within the creative.
content
Yes.
that's developing and producing that type of stuff for kids. And we'll just put it out there for adults too.
Right. I mean, I don't remember which game it was. It's probably the one we're talking about, but I don't want to, I don't want to slander anybody or slam anybody, but there were kids getting into strip clubs in some of these multiplayer games. I'm
That
like,
is crazy.
right? Well, if you think about it, cool for the adults. Let the adults be adults. Let them have a bar, a strip club, whatever they wanted, whatever is considered community acceptable. I don't, it's not my thing. And again, because adults, right? We grew up having remote controls. If you go in and it's not your thing, what do? You turn around and you exit,
Hmm.
right? So, if you're an adult, be an adult, go do what you want to do without hurting other people, you know? I mean, really and truthfully, we're getting into the metaverse now, right?
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
when you talk about metaverse, you're talking about augmented reality, you're talking about virtual reality. You're going to experience these types of things because the real world has those types of things. The thing is that we need to be mindful, right? Because those things exist as adults, not just parents, okay? But as content creators and as corporations, that these kids deserve to be kids. So, in my opinion, the age appropriate design code really gives way for the opportunity for us to act as a community unit. Yes, we know these things exist. As a parent, I'm going to do my part to approve my child being on this game, however, within these parameters. And I
Hmm.
expect that a company is going to, within their legal parameters, right? They make sure my kid doesn't wander into the OBT of the metaverse. I'm
Right.
going to make sure because that's not age appropriate. Um, it really, and one of the things too, because the age appropriate design code says, um, like, okay, so this applies to, and it's very vague, a for-profit entity that has more than $25 million or more in annual gross sales is one of the 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 possibilities of having to follow the AADCA. The other part is if you have 100,000 or more users, which users is defined as users, followers, subscribers. So for example, let's talk about YouTube. You've got, The B family, who are absolutely wonderful family entertainers, they've got more than 1 million subscribers. They are now held to the Age Appropriate Design Code Act. But they're kind of third party because they're a content creator, right? So YouTube has to allow for them to be able to make sure that autoplay is off, that we're not doing dark screen stuff to make it easier. That there are, one of the recommendations was telling kids, hey, you've been on this app for 20 minutes, you probably should take a break. Giving them, little notifications like that. But then, you've got COPA that can come in and say, but you can't track their time. Well, you can. It's one of those things. There's going to have to be more parental involvement to have a parental control system that says my kid can be on for 20 to 30 minutes, and it gives that information to the sites. There's going to have to be there's going to have to be a lot of interaction and cohesion between the companies and the parents. Do I want I'm the parent? I don't want my phone going off every 20, 30 minutes. Like, hey, your kid's still on this app. Is it okay? No, I would like to preset a time for them to be notified. And if they go another 5 minutes, the app shuts off. That's it. It's not so much that the corporations are being jerky to my kid, and I'm not being jerky. We're just looking out for your best interest. And that's where it's just going to have to be a community effort where we are proactively positive parenting, and we're having conversations and empowering our kids to look out for their best interest and well-being as well. Build that self-esteem of, hey, we want you to grow into being responsible adults, because again, we're not raising kids. That's how you end up with a 30-year-old that stays at home. And I mean, going home because you had a rough time is one thing, but living there permanently, that's a whole other subject. And parent and child the way you want to, but the goal is to raise an independent adult who is, contributing to society and to the community.
Absolutely.
And, yes, things are tougher in some instances than they were before. But everybody's had that roommate experience. Everybody's had, learning to share a bathroom with multiple people. But, that's a whole other conversation. But, so if you have 100,000 or more users, followers, subscribers, you're also subject to this law. Or let's say you've got 10,000 users, but you derive 50% of your annual revenue from selling or sharing consumers' personal information. That is where they can get pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
So it's vague, but again, we've got to look at it as opportunity. We have an opportunity, like example, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. It's been enacted for a month and a half now. I see a huge opportunity, to be honest, with taboo companies. Because they say, okay, this should be only to people that are directed at kids. Nope, it actually says of interest to kids. Now, again, taboo companies are things that require you to be over the age of 18 or over 21, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, cannabis, all of that. When you talk about taboo companies, those are the things that kids want. They want to see it because it's forbidden.
Right.
So I see an opportunity for them to say, hey, we've got this information that this is the age that you are, and now is not the time. But when you're 21 or when you're 18, we'll be here. Here's what we will give you access to. Don't completely deny them access. That's dumb. Give them access to, let's talk about Jameson whiskey. Okay. Give them access to information about prohibition and the history of prohibition and the history of distilleries and making whiskey, because
Mhm.
maybe, just maybe, they're doing a report. Maybe they're doing a report about alcoholism. There are all kinds of opportunities that these taboo companies can go down. Let's say it's a kid who, and the company wouldn't necessarily know, but let's say it's a 16-year-old kid that's in that higher echelon, right? The 16 to 17 years, 11 months that's trying to access an alcohol site. They could very easily say, you know what? We've received the information that you're this age group. Drinking and driving during the holidays, prom, homecoming can have serious effects beyond you or your friends. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk. You know, they could take that PSA route, which I think would just be exceptional. And then, deny access to the rum runner or the Jameson sour recipe that they were looking for, because they don't need it. But maybe there's an alternate. Maybe there's, hey, if you're going to a party and you want to look cool, here's a non-alcoholic beverage you can make, and it looks just as cool as anything else. I think that there's a lot of opportunity in empowering kids to build their self-esteem, maybe even save face to a degree. And I think that kids will take to those companies, and you can build early brand loyalty that way. I probably down too many rabbit holes as
You're
a
fine.
parent. As a parent of 6 and a grandparent of 8, I think you do that though. The more experiences you have, you apply those to, at least with what we're doing. And I'm just like, yeah, oh yeah, this would be good. My 24-year-old said, 14-year-old me would hate you, but 24-year-old parent me loves what you're doing. So
Hmm.
that makes
That's impactful. I know I've had several conversations. I can even see it with my own teenager now. He's at that stage. Excuse me. He's at a stage right now where, well, one, I was his hero growing up. I
right.
probably still I am, but at the teenage stage, I don't hear much of that. It's more like, hey, I'm cool.
Hmm.
Just let me do my thing, Dad. Like, you know, fine, that's fine.
Right.
But I know as an adult, it's gonna come around because I've come around and I've talked to
Oh
my own
yeah.
parents like, hey, I really appreciate all that you've done. I didn't understand at the time, but now that I'm a parent myself and I'm going through life trying to figure things out. And hey,
Hmm.
not living in the basement, not
Right.
n-
Right.
but understanding and having that life experience, you kind of realize like, hey, my parents were actually right this whole time.
My dad,
The
my dad told me when I was 13 or 14, he started telling me, and I heard myself the other day tell my youngest daughter, Alyssa, she's 11. And I said, you're going to be amazed at how much I learned between now and the time you turn 25. It's incredible, the education I
Absolutely.
get as your parent, how much you'll realize I learned while you were growing up. And in reflection, that's probably one of the wisest things my dad ever told me. And yeah, I miss him a lot. I lost him when I was 24, and
Mm.
um, yeah, I certainly do everything I can to remember as many of his lessons and pass those on. And so, working with Authentikid, that gives me a lot of opportunity to do that.
Yeah, pass down that legacy, but
Yes.
having a lot more impact. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at this the sheet that you sent over to me, and
Yeah.
one thing I'm looking at here is there's two things that stick out to me. It says that make it easy for kids to report privacy concerns,
Hmm.
and it says also let kids know that they're being monitored or tracked. So,
Yes.
I see that from a business standpoint and protecting the consumer standpoint. But then we also know too, just kind of what we're talking about with this new AR, VR world that we're in right now,
Mhm.
there can also be, we'll just call it cyberbullies, in these
Yes.
environments where they're following people around, maybe saying things that they shouldn't be saying to them, and then
Yes.
maybe as a child you don't know how to get out of that situation. So could you talk about why it's important to have these built-in protections, so that way if you're a young person, how do you go about protecting yourself and then letting somebody know that there's bad actors that are not making the experience what I thought it should be?
Absolutely. First of all, um, we need to break down that question because it was a big question with a lot of meat to it. Um, the reason why it's important to give kids an easy way to report privacy concerns, let's start there, is because kids will second, third, and fourth guess whether or not they should report it. Because one, not every kid is raised in your household or my household, Jamal, where our kids would come to us and go, "Can you believe this? This guy just said this to me." Where you and I would take the computer, the tablet, the phone, and just be like, "Do you know you just said that to an 11-year-old kid? You're an idiot." Report, block, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You have to empower them to make those decisions, and as much as I hate to say it, experience it. That's the only way kids learn. And so when that cyberbully, when that bad actor comes on, the first thing you can do to protect your kid is to build their self-esteem so they don't buy any. I'm just going to say it. You can bleep me out. They don't buy into the somebody is feeding them online. Number one. Number two, they need a simple button that is report and block, boot and block, whatever it is. It needs to be a one-step thing for kids so that they don't have to second guess themselves. Make it simpler than it is on adult social media, where you have to go, okay, I'm going to click report, then I have to back out, then I have to block, and is it okay to block? Yes. You know, um, sometimes those buttons though can be, maybe it's a two-step. Did you mean to hit the button? Yes, I did. Click again, and that's it, and they're gone. Um, they're you in games, you tend to have a PvP and a solo version. So you can PvP means that you can communicate and see what other people are saying. The solo versions, you see the bodies, but you aren't in communication. One of the best parts, honestly, about Authentikid is the way our program is built. Kids will have an authentic key, and they'll be able to identify that, hey, that player there has an authentic key too. So they know it's a kid. And then they can choose to converse or not with that kid. And again, you can boot and block just like anybody else, but you will actually know that that's a kid on there. And that's good for adults too, because as some kids again will lie about their age, put up their big sister's picture, or whatever, and yeah, I'm over 18. Oh no, that's a 14-year-old kid, and you just hit on them. Ew. you know Again, that's why, another reason, just as personally, that I'm against biometrics, because with filters, some 13-year-old girls are going to look 19, and online you run into that problem. Oh, it's just a mess. But anyway, why is it important? Because again, we're raising adults. We're not trying to keep them. We don't want 18-year-olds that are not, that haven't lived life. There's a purpose to teenagers going through their rebellion. There's a purpose of why we, laugh and say that We want our kids to be critical thinkers, but then when they argue with us, we question that. Critical thinking skills are important, and that those need to be applied, but you can't apply them until they're in a situation where they're necessary, and that has to be staged and staggered. For example, we don't learn impulse control. We don't start to learn impulse control until we're 8. Experts say that we master it by 25, but as a parent of 6, I can argue that point all day long, because my kids are 28, 26, and 24, and I've experienced a few things, even when I was 25. Even now that I'm 52, I have impulse control issues sometimes.
We all do.
Right. That whole deliver to my house thing. Oh, Amazon calling me. So, but that's why we have to make it easier for kids to report privacy concerns. Somebody is following me, somebody keeps sending me private messages. That all goes into design control. So you can, but again, I think it really is going to take a partnership between company design, and parents. So we go on as parents and say, you know what? I don't want my kids getting random private messages. If they get a message from a username that I've approved, cool. Or if it's associated with an email address that's in my list, right, for my kids, that would be fine. The terms and conditions, let's talk about the monitoring and tracking. With the AR, VR technology that's coming out, companies are going to need to know where they're at just so that they can utilize the geofencing for the AR. But your kid needs to know that if they know, other people can know. I think this also plays into the COPA law that's allowing kids to turn off the tracking mechanisms, even on the apps that their parents put on the phones. I think that they are doing that, and I'm just going to say it with the best of intentions, because there are kids that, again, are not being raised in our households. There are some kids that are in some really serious predicaments, and if they need to have their tracker turned off to escape something, for example, maybe they're a teenager that is involved in a controlling, abusive relationship, not at home, but with a significant other. And he says, I want to know where you are every minute of the day, right? That kid needs to know that tracker is on. And maybe that kid is embarrassed to talk to their parents. It's just kind of a mess when you think about it in those terms. But they have to know that we're not sneaking that somebody hasn't, snuck in their phone and turned the tracking on. Like, let's say the significant other, that's what they do. Well, I turned your tracking on, so I know you're not where you say you are. Or, they have to know that they're being monitored or tracked, and they're able to turn it off. Sometimes kids can't find that toggle button, or they aren't as familiar with the app, especially when they just start using an app. Voluntary sharing of location is pretty basic. And so, like, when my kids, I'm currently doing an experiment with my 11-year-old. She's on pretty much every single app, and I sweat every day right now.
Right. I can imagine.
I mean, she's on all the predatory top 5, which scares the crap out of me. But she's so great. I mean, she was on something the other day, and and let me just also say for your audience, I'm not using her as a guinea pig, so don't come at me with that. But because of the way she was raised, she's the youngest of 6. Her 3 eldest are brothers. and very protective. Let me teach my sister how to fight at 6 brothers. And she has a sister with Down syndrome. So she's been extremely protective, at times overly somewhat maternal. And I have to get at her on that. So she has an incredible sense of who she is, even while she's, exploring that growth. She's going to be an incredible kid that grows into an incredible adult. But she came to me the other day and she goes, okay, so I just saw this video and I came to tell you I completely get sugar daddy vibes off of this and it's gross. I was like, what are you watching? And so she showed me and I was like, oh my goodness, this girl had gotten gifts and she didn't say the word sugar daddy. But I was like, you know what? My daughter is going to be just fine when she's 25. If she's seeing this stuff and identifying it as a negative,
Yeah, I can
I'm
see
good.
that.
I'm good. But you know, explaining things to kids in a manner that is age appropriate, that's key. And that's going to be any app that is of interest to kids. So terms of service, community rules and regulations and policies, they have to break that down for kids. And so when I gave a seminar the other day about AADCA, I suggested, because you've got kids on large social media websites that are 6 years old. Okay. Which I can't even imagine, but it happens. Parents are building these profiles for their kids and letting them on. That's their parenting style. I wouldn't do it, but okay. That means, though, that those terms and conditions, the community policies, all of that has to be written and communicated in a way that those kids understand. So I had to suggest people go get the Dolch sight words to write out a version for that 6 to 9 age group.
Wow.
It's a lot. And that's why when this bill got signed, so many people kind of reared up and they're like, well, we're just going to say that nobody under 18 is going to have that. Really? You really think for 1 second that these companies out there are going to say, we're going to turn away everybody that's under 18? You're out of your tree. The majority of data that's being collected in the under 24 category are kids under 18. So, because they've got more time on their hands, they don't have to be out, working at 24, right? Because that it's weird when you look at demographics. They'll say 18 to 24. I'm going, are you serious? There's like 3 age groups in that category to me. You've got the 18 to 21, potentially in college, studying, might have time for a part-time job. And then you've got the kids who are busting tail because they got out of high school and they didn't go to college. And then, so maybe they're 19 to 21 because they took a year off. And then you've got the 21 to 24 who are experiencing a whole different market of life because they can legally do anything, right?
Right.
Yeah, the perspectives are very interesting. But yeah, you have to write everything in a manner so that kids understand, and you have to present it like those buttons to turn on and off tracking, to report inappropriate activity or bad actors, threat actors, predatory behaviors.
Yeah. So basically, just from what I'm hearing,
Mm-hmm.
we as parents and as good community citizens, we just can't let this younger generation, this younger age group, just have free reign on the internet, just because they're not aware of all the dangers and the other things that are out there that can impact them. The other thing I'm also hearing too from a company standpoint, content creator standpoint, you have an interest in making sure that these kids are protected, whether you know it or not. But you also too may not be an expert in this arena. So I can see where a company like Authentikid comes into play, because maybe I'm not content creator and I'm more focused on, just doing the tech thing and putting that stuff out there, and
Right.
not overly aware of the implications. Like, especially if I'm living in California and I didn't know about this law, um, now I had to comply by it and be in trouble. So can you maybe just walk us through a couple different examples of how your company's helping out and providing that partnership between the companies and parents that have young kids?
Sure. Well, first and foremost is the Authentikid tech suite that we're doing. What it will do will allow kids to share their age group with a company that would have the Authentilock to accept the information embedded in their technology, so that so basically what it'll do is it authenticates and verifies the age of the content consumer if they are a minor, so a company can set up a set of levers and switches, so to speak, to say, oh, this door is locked, but these doors are open to the 6 to 9 age group. You know, we because that's really where the funnel begins, right? Developmentally speaking, we can do some consultancy to say, that's really not age appropriate for that group, but that's a customized thing that we can do. But we can say this age group, they need notifications, to take bio breaks, or and honestly, I would love to see a company like YouTube say, okay, you have watched these videos for 20 minutes. You can push one of these 2 buttons. You're going to either go do a chore, help your mom in the kitchen, whatever. So make a positive socialization type human contact recommendation. That's what I'd love to see come out of these things, right? Or you're going to go do 20 jumping jacks in the backyard or in the family room, depending on what your climate is like, to keep kids from being sedentary and just attached. That was the concept behind the Fitbit. And now you see people, getting these incredible badges, because it's that whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs and personal growth. When you get to the level of self-esteem and self-empowerment at the top, because you did it because you felt good because you did it, that's where we want kids to be. So we're working on a part of that as well, where we're bridging parents, community, and corporation contributions to empower kids to use that psychologically. But that's down the road a little bit, and I'm more than happy to come back on the show to talk about that later. But we'll be happy to work out something as a consultancy to help people with age appropriate design. It's not an issue. It's because it's important. It's important. Developmental design, and where this law is concerned, is vital. Because again, we're talking about impulse control. We're talking about continuity and making sure that kids get it. I mean, there's just that it sinks in that this is not where your life is. Your life is out there. This is
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of us, either growing up in tech and then seeing this develop over the years, this is a whole new territory for a lot of people. Not only for the parents, but just for the kids in general. Um, And then for those of us that didn't grow up with this technology and not having to deal with just some of these issues, it can be hard to understand exactly what some of our teens and then just younger kids are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So I love the fact that you mentioned that it has to be a partnership. It has to be a community effort to make sure that these kids are all protected. And we
It
want them to
is.
grow up to be healthy, and we don't want them to be
And
afraid of
well-rounded.
technology.
No, we want them to be, because again, let's be honest, this generation that the AADCA applies to, their life exists in two different places, online and offline.
Very true.
The generation prior to them, mostly offline, somewhat online for the majority of them. Some of them, some of the generation before them didn't even do online. But you've got the Gen Zers, and then you've got this new generation. This new generation spent 18 months in quarantine under pandemic online. That was the only way they had social interaction. There is no way you are going to jack that out of their hands. It is now ingrained in society. And we have to learn how to use this as a tool and keep it positive, because if you don't, that's where you will create such a severe disconnect in your family. It can be extremely detrimental if you don't understand that these kiddos have, because of the time they spent online during the pandemic, because we all loosened up, right? We all did, because we needed to
Absolutely.
breathe too. And we were online. They were online. We weren't necessarily online together. Households are all different, but what we have to remember is that to this generation, there is no more in real life friends versus online friends. They're all just friends. There is no differentiation. And that's where, in my opinion, our product is going to make a big difference, because you do have threat actors who pretend to be a different age. And that is where we can nip some of this in the bud and let parents sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that, I hit the button. My kid's only talking to kids with Authentikid.
Absolutely. Love it. Proactive solutions for a completely changing and interesting world.
Absolutely.
Um,
The ecosystem has completely changed, but we have to work with it, not against it. Like I said at the beginning, we choose whether or not to see an obstacle or an opportunity, and I see opportunities everywhere.
I could talk to you for hours, but we probably can't do that, at least not today.
No, but we can always do a part two.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Most
One of the
definitely.
key things that we should talk about too is this particular law does require that anytime there is a new product put out, they have to do a data protection impact assessment. And
Wow.
yeah, every single time, a new function, a new product, and if the attorney general requests it, they have to submit that DPIA in writing for approval.
So
So
it's similar to like kind of like with the EPA, like environmental
yeah.
like assessment.
Mm-hmm.
How is this going to impact the land? But we're talking about now for the digital space. How is
Yes.
this going to affect? Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's very
It's
interesting.
huge. And we will be doing those. We'll be happy to help people with that.
We're gonna need some help for sure. Yeah, it's a completely new space, and there's no. I'm always of the mindset of partnering with the experts. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense in this instance. Once again, if you're the content creator, if you're the company that's you have the expertise in delivering that product or service, but maybe not so much with the other back end functions, the security, and just the new requirements that you're going to be held to. You have to partner with the right company, so that way you're protected as well as the consumers that you're serving are protected as well too.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And companies are not going to be able to profile kids anymore, unless it's, something that's shown to be in their best interests. If the information they've been collecting isn't necessary to delivering the experience or the service that they provide, the AADCA says absolutely not. It's not just about parental consent, it's about function. And that is a big step up with this law too.
Absolutely. And then if you look at this from the broader perspective, the larger companies that are out there from the social media landscape, they aren't necessarily allowed to track users like that anyways,
No,
so
no.
cookies are dying. The ask
Mhm,
not to track from Apple's iOS upgrade from a little while ago, all
mhm.
that's changing the landscape. So there has to be a different way to go about this data collection.
Well, I think that with kids, I think it needs to be more of a demographic, statistical type information in a bucket. Okay, I think that's the smartest way to do it. Just ethically stop tracking an individual. Just stop. You're gonna if you do that and you're ethical about it, and I know sometimes people say business ethics is an oxymoron, but if you do it that way, right? At 18, they're gonna go, God, I had the best time, on with this company or this product or I'm gonna continue to be loyal to that. I'm absolutely fascinated. Bob Chapek. I watched an interview with him live the other day, out in Malibu, and Disney is headed into. He made a big point of how Disney Plus is more than just a movie streaming service. It's going to evolve into VR and the AR space, and they want to be able to allow families to take the magic home with them. Now, I'm a huge Disney fan, have been my whole life. This year, Disney World turned 50, and next year, the Walt Disney World, the Disney company itself turns 100. So, it's a pivotal time for them. All I could envision was how can I set trip the algorithms in whatever data they're collecting, at the park is what they're talking about. Taking the magic home with you. So how can so in my head I'm going, okay, the last hour that I'm in a park, I'm going to ride the Pirates of the Caribbean ride about 15 times. And then I'm going to get into my car. And I'm not driving. Jamal, if we're together, our families are together, you're driving. Because I am putting on my AR headset. I'm putting on my VR headset, and I'm going
Hmm.
to be riding the Black Pearl home. That is the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. Okay. But the kicker is if they're collecting that data is okay because that's within the function of the service, right? But it's the let me collect how old you are specifically, how long you waited in line without having a tantrum. Did you sweat while you were in line? Those are not necessary to the function. But when you talk, but large companies are collecting all this unnecessary data on anybody, and we have to make sure we're not doing that on minors. The state of Florida, example, they just passed that they were going to fully digitize sports authorization forms. Okay, not just the approval, right? So when you go in, to go get your sports checkup, your sports physical, the entire form is getting digitized, not just the approval that it's okay for you to go run cross country. It's how high, how tall you are, how much you weigh. In the case of a girl, when was your last menstrual period? Um, None of that is anybody is should be data that's out there. None of it. All they need is the approval form. So as far as me politically getting involved in anything, I'm absolutely going to, be talking on a personal level, about minimizing the data that's out there on kids because it's not necessary. And because once it's compromised, it's compromised.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then maybe we can touch on this before we wrap things up. We know that the LA Unified School District recently got hacked, and
Yes.
that was a big deal because that was a whole ransomware attack. I looked into that myself, and then just
Huge.
understanding that that entity maybe didn't have all the necessary protections that they needed to guard against that. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this type of behavior happening to school systems now?
First of all, you have our most precious resource in your hands. We are trusting you with it as a school board, right? It's not just the principals. It's not just the cybersecurity officers in the schools or at the district level. It's the school board. We elect you people. So we're looking to you as community leaders to keep our kids safe. You have our kids from anywhere from 7 to 12 to sometimes 15 hours in a day if they're in band and musical theater and they have, cross country before school. Again, mom of 6, I've seen it. And even when I was a kid, I was at school. I get there like at 7:30, and then some days I didn't come home until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock because I had practice for a theater production. So we're trusting you with our kids. We're trusting you with our kids' information. And we've reached out to LA Unified. Authentikid has, and we're excited about getting a chance to help them keep their kids extra safe. The money has been budgeted on a federal level, not just talking about LA Unified, but any school system. $300 million was just recently opened up after the LA Unified attack to improve cybersecurity for schools. So I'm hoping that schools are reaching out and taking advantage of that opportunity to get better funded. Again, going back to COVID-19 and the pandemic and our kids being home and on school supplied, in many cases, devices, there's a lot of room for improvement on how we're securing our kids and their data. Because personally identifiable information is not, like I said, it's not just your name, address, and phone number and social security number. It's your eye color, your hair color, your weight, your height, your math scores could be considered personally identifiable. If there's something in your data, in your file, in your record that says you're in the bottom 10 or the top 10, right, of a certain subject, that can identify you.
Absolutely.
It's because data is funneled. Everybody knows this. So they can put the puzzle piece together really quick and find out exactly where people are. The key is stopping that before it happens. Stop with the ransomware. Those to me are absolutely foundational. Absolutely foundational. There's no reason why we don't have proper firewalls and cybersecurity in space, in place, excuse me, when it comes to not just protecting the students, but protecting the teachers.
Absolutely.
The teachers got hit there too. And God bless LA Unified. They've got some amazing programs and some incredible kids and teachers and administrators. I wish we would have been in place a year ago, and ready to service them. But we will be ready to service them and would be grateful to have the opportunity. It's devastating when you think about the violation as a person, right? I mean, if you get hacked on a profile on social media, you're like, ugh. Or even if somebody just mirrors your profile, right? It's irritating. Like on Instagram, like they'll go to your Facebook because they're connected and they'll pull your profile picture and they'll create another profile, but on Instagram, and then reach out to your friends list on Facebook, and your friends for a hot minute think that it's you.
Right.
You know, It doesn't take much if it's that simple, just on social media. It doesn't. Once somebody gets your basic information off of any kind of hack, and again, this is why we're against biometrics, because let's say for a second, because I don't know the ins and outs of exactly what LA Unified has for their kids, but I guarantee that they have student IDs, right? So what goes into creating a student ID at a school? You've got your name, age, right? Name, birth date, address. What's on a student ID today? It's been forever since I've actually looked at one.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to, yeah.
What
So
what
so
you
I
have a
those are all the
kid, right?
basics. Yeah, those are all the basics, and then
You have a
even
picture,
the picture, the picture
right?
too. Yeah.
Because I know some schools are actually including fingerprints for,
Oh wow.
yeah, that like they're checking out school books by, well, but why not? Disney did it for annual passes. If people will give Disney their fingerprints for an annual pass to a theme park, why wouldn't you do it for the library? Why
Right.
wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do it for? Okay, but then politically we go, why wouldn't you do it for a driver's license? Um, I'm not going to get into that though, because you got something to hide. That's why. But but my thing is um, once you give up those things, those biometrics, the possibility of them being compromised is there. It's there. And I sure as heck wouldn't want kids at LA Unified to have that fear of their biometrics being compromised. There's
Absolutely.
already there's already enough that we need to work towards unification and bridging diversity. You know, I don't want to see LA Unified go that direction as far as security is concerned. What I'd like to see them do is get those foundational pieces in place to keep threat actors out, and definitely have, maybe a 24-hour monitoring service for a while.
I think it's gonna be that, not only for the schools, but just for a lot of entities out there that are just in this space and have a digital presence. So
Absolutely.
it's we know that these attacks are going to get worse. So we have to step up the tools and get the help that we need, so
It
that way
is.
we're all protected and protecting the consumer data as well too.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, I think most people consider cybersecurity our biggest national threat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Lisa. Well, I'm not going to hold you too much longer. Like I said, I can talk to
You
you
could.
for a long time about this stuff, but
Well, hey,
really
I'm always willing to do a 5-part series with you, Jamal. That's no problem.
all right. I'll hold you to it.
Well, hey, if you want to, I'm down, but I just don't know what we would talk about. But keeping kids safe is always um, on the tip of my tongue, anytime.
All right. So if people want to know more about you and Authentikid, how can they get in touch with you?
There's a bazillion ways you can get in touch with me. Of course, you can go to our website, which is authentikid.com. That's capital AUTHENTI, capital KID.com. You can also join our community on Facebook, which is Parents and Educators of Tech Savvy Kids. Reach out to me on Twitter, LisaMan6 or Authentikid. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, Lisa Mans. And we also have an Authentikid page on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome.
I think I covered everything. I know we're on Instagram too. We're everywhere.
You got it covered.
We
Awesome.
try.
I appreciate your time today, and thanks for sharing. I know I learned a lot, and I hope the rest of the folks listening to this learn something as well too. So definitely get in touch with Lisa if you have more questions about protecting your kids online, as well as your company going into this digital age. So Lisa, thank you again for your time, and we'll talk
Thank
again
you.
soon.
I appreciate that. The Authentic Key will be distributed to kids at no cost, because we don't think that it's right for kids to have to pay to feel safe. But companies will be able to subscribe to our monthly service. So if we do it together, there's no telling what the leaders of tomorrow will do for us because we made them safe today. So thanks for the
Absolutely.
time. I appreciate it, Jamal.